So why did I leave Japan, move back to my home country permanently, and then come back in 3 months? Good question. We're going to answer that today in today's video. And guys, I gotta say, in a nutshell, I like Japan, and yeah. So let's get into it. So for those of you who don't know, I've been living in Japan for the past 7 years. And I guess I could still count that timer because I wasn't really gone that long enough to say 7 years, a split, and then, back again. I was only gone for 3 months. And yeah, for those of you who are longtime fans of the channel, you know who I am and what I've been doing here. And for those of you who are new here, maybe it'll give you some perspective of why someone would willingly come to a country where you're supposed to be, whatchamacallit. A lot of people call us like second-class citizens, I guess, as foreigners, but that's not true at all, to be honest with you. It's just how you make it, right? So anyway, so was here for 7 years, and then basically in about March or so in 2023, I went through a very, the most traumatizing breakup of my life. Yeah, I went through a breakup, and it was quite a long one. And yeah, I also turned 30 this year. So a lot of things just kind of came together. And then at that time too, my family came to visit from Canada, and we talked it out, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, hey, you know what? Maybe I could like reset my life and do all this kind of stuff and, start a new thing in Canada. And, I was like, okay, great, awesome, and, on paper, like my life was fine. And I felt like, hey, I feel like I accomplished everything in the book, and I was pretty content. I was pretty complacent of where I was at the time in spring. And I felt like, hey, you know what? Maybe it is time for a change. Maybe it is. Or maybe it was heartbreak language. I don't know. We're never gonna know. But yeah, so I decided to just kind of pull the trigger on it and make I don't know if it was a rash decision. It probably was. It cost me a hell of a lot of money to just leave Japan. I'm sure anyone who has left Japan knows the moving costs of just leaving. Cleaning fees, am I right? I'll make a skit on that. But yeah, so went home to Canada, and I got there, and it was great. But before we get to that part, I want to talk about before I left. So when I left Japan, I had about 2 months from my declaration to the actual departure date, and my God, I had a whole bunch of money because I was selling all my airsoft guns, I was selling all my furniture and TV and everything. I was like selling 7 years worth of stuff. I was just selling it all away because I had to I had to liquidate it all, right? So I had a little bit of extra money, and God damn, I actually got to experience all the things that I kind of put on hold because either A, I live in the countryside, or B, I was with my significant other at the time, so I didn't really go out to do those things. And my God, I had the best 2 months I think I've ever had in all the 7 years in Japan. I experienced like everything that was on the bucket list. And it was great. I went to Disneyland for the first time in my life, and Disneyland was amazing. Like I was always like trashing the the mouse and stuff, but I actually went there. It was crazy. It was like I was in a video game. I loved it. It was probably one of the happiest times I've ever had in my life. Escapism, am I right? And then I went to Disney Sea. Disney Sea kind of mid, but whatever. It was great. If you go with a date. It was fantastic. And then I also got to do some touristy stuff. I finally went up the Skytree. I went up Tokyo Tower. Went to Hakone and saw Mount Fuji for the first time. So that was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it was nice to see all the things that I never really, took the time to see. It's kind of like, it's always there, so you don't really feel like you need to go and see it because you could kind of see it anytime. But it was such a great time, and it was odd because by the time I left and I was leaving, I was like, I don't think I did really want to leave anymore. But Ended up doing it anyway because I made some commitments. I got to set things up back home, and people are waiting for me and stuff. Now, is that me living for yourself or living for others? Different story, different question. But anyway, did it, and I got to go back to Canada. So I was in Canada, and it was a great experience. I got to experience the freedom of expression again. I know that sounds like Japan's like some sort of not communist, but Japan on paper is a democracy. It's a free country. You can do whatever you want, but the amount of social unwritten rules and culture around it prevents a lot of people from doing things because you care about mawari no hito. You care about the people around you, the things you say. And by the time I left, a lot of people were calling me like, "Nihon ni sumatta ne," like you've been dyed by Japan. I was very, very Japanese, and it really showed when I went to Canada. And like there are some of the mannerisms I had still, just being polite to people, not raising my voice as much if I wasn't drunk, and just being shocked by all these things in Canada, like people throwing my passport around, not even giving you eye contact with customer service. But anyway, got back to Canada, got to experience all the Canadian things, and I was pretty hyped. I was like, yo, it's time to go get a job, or maybe I'll mess around for like a month or something like that. I had enough funds to kind of last me 2 or 3 months. And yeah, I got to see my family, got to be at home, got to meet my dog, who I've never met, Archie-kun. Got to see my friends, got to reconnect with a lot of people, got to connect with new people who I only really knew like online or like, dude, Mayday-san's in Japan. Like I know him, or he's X's brother or whatever, his cousin, whatever. But it was nice to actually like meet people and actually make genuine connections with people in real time. And for the first month, I was trying to convert the content of Mayday-san over. So from 2022 to 2023, Mayday-san's content, which we'll talk about after, kind of shifted from comedic skits to like travel content kind of thing, kind of the new meta that everyone's kind of doing right now. And I tried to do it in Toronto. And for me, like, I already knew that there was something weird about it because I know when I created Mayday-san, I knew that this day would come, but I really did focus this channel on being a Japan channel, whatever it may be. And going against that USP was not really helping me numbers-wise. And, it just felt kind of soulless to me when I was doing it. So anyway, going through Canada and spending a lot of time in Toronto, drinking, partying, seeing friends, seeing things I haven't seen in 5 years, and just experiencing what life was like outside of work. At this time, I didn't really have a job, didn't really try to find one yet, but it was great. It was fantastic, absolutely great. Met a lot of people, and oddly, I did not meet a lot of Japanese people, and it was weird for me because most of my, if you ever watch my stories on Instagram, most of my time spent in Toronto was like in Koreatown and with Korean people and Japanese people or whatever. And it was really weird because like it didn't really feel like I was in Canada. I felt like I was in Korea, even though I've never been there. But a lot of it was about that. So I really felt this weird disconnect, and there was nothing for me to really stay connected with Japan. And I had my friend who was always telling me like, that's you being connected to your past. You're letting your past define you. You're letting your past this, you're letting your past doing that. You're not looking forward. You're not looking forward. And in a way, he was right. I always felt like I can't let Mayday-san die. I can't let all the work that I've done for the past 7 years, 5 years, 6 years, just kind of go to waste. And I felt like I needed to keep the train going, and I couldn't really feel it. It's just like anything that I would find Japanese was either A, owned by Koreans, or B, insanely expensive or not authentic. And there just wasn't enough there for me. And it was just, I didn't feel like I was at home anymore. Even though Canada was my home, it did not feel like my home. And it was weird. And every time I met somebody and talked about where I've been, what I was doing in Japan, blah, 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 this and that, I was either met with two responses. One, why did you leave? And two, are you gonna stay? So I remember whenever someone would ask me that, I would always knew in the back of my head that I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna stay. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna stay. I can't tell them with a straight face, yeah, I'm gonna stay here for the rest of my life. And I felt like I really, really had to force myself to try and make it work in Canada. So I started looking for a job. I made a LinkedIn profile, I did all this stuff, and I was applying to companies like every day for like 2 weeks because it was, whatever. And nothing. There was like barely any leads, and I felt this imposter syndrome, like all this work that I did in Japan means nothing here. Everything that I did in Japan means nothing here. I am nobody here. I know a lot of people say, does it matter who you are or where you're from? Where you're from. But for me, like on a small scale, I felt like I was him here in Japan. Like I was somebody, I'd walk in Shibuya, people would recognize me, and I get that nice affirmation, words of validation from other people because I have low self-esteem. Yuck. But I felt that, I wasn't really anybody here. And I mean, Canada. So as I started to look more into the practicality of actually living in Canada, it just wasn't realistically panning out. Yes, in Japan, you make some pretty poo-poo salaries. You're making 30K, maybe 40K a year. And to Western standards, okay, that's doo-doo munch crunch, right? But here I am looking at salaries like 60K, 70K, 80K, whatever, right? Sounds great on paper. But for wheels on God, 2023 at the time of this recording, Canada is cooked. There is literally no practicality of actually living there on your own. Now, what I mean is, I have literally seen and have been living on my own in the ideal lifestyle that you would have in Toronto, in Japan for a quarter of the price. At the time of this recording, I'm pretty sure it costs about $2,500 to live by yourself in Toronto, whether it be uptown or downtown. Obviously, the farther down you go, the more expensive it is. And I'm just like, that's absolutely bananas, insane, absolutely insane, right? And you like the meta, I found it so weird that the meta to live as a friggin' 30-year-old in Canada is to A, live with your parents, or B, live with a homie or three other dudes, whatever. And for me, coming from someone who's had all this independence, that just did not appeal to me. And that's like, what is this? And then you go out for food, it's like $25. $25 for a piece of chicken. Subway was $18. And then you go to Subway or you go to bubble tea, okay? I went to this bubble tea place, right? And I ordered the bubble tea and they had the audacity to turn the iPad around and give them a tip. I'm like, what? Give you a tip for taking my order? You did nothing. You did nothing. It's getting out of control there. Like, it's just, and you're coming from a country that did not have any of that, right? So yes, it's the norm for the Western society to tip and stuff. I'd never liked tipping, but I think it's dumb, but that's a different story. You know, someone who doesn't have enough money right now to kind of do those things, and just like, it just felt so backwards to me. And I felt like I was taking a huge step backwards. And I knew that was going to happen. I knew I was going to feel like that. Going back to live with your parents, honestly, on financial paper and all that stuff, it's a good idea. Save money, pay low rent, make your money, pay off your debts, do whatever. But I would honestly rather be financially crunched by living on a Japan salary and just figuring out my debt somehow and becoming a famous content creator or whatever, than feeling trapped and not being able to have my freedom and do whatever I wanted to do. One thing in Canada is you had to have a car. And I didn't live downtown. I live in the GTA. What's your GTA? And you need a car. You need a car. And my license expired, so I had to pay $160 just to get my license back. And that wasn't happening because I didn't really have this intention to stay in my back of my head. And then it's like, whatever, man. So even if I did and I got a car, you have to pay for a car. It's like $800. Then you have insurance. Then you have to pay a rent. Then you have to pay for mad groceries, like $300 a week. $300 a week. Then you have to pay for tips. You have to do going out drinking. You know how much soju costs for drinking? It costs $25 for soju plus tip, right? And it's just like, damn, like, bro, financially crunched. Mayday-san in a financially crunched area was not it, chief. And the thing was, when I was at the beginning of my Canadian vacation, what you call it now, I had a lot of money. Like, money wasn't an object because I had enough money from selling all my resources. And then I ideally had the best nights of my life outside of work. So imagine you go to work and then you go out. So I'd always go out with my friend after his job was finished and we'd go out and do stuff. And I just felt like, bro, if this is the most fun I can have for $200 a night, this is pretty mid. Then I come back to Japan. I had the same amount of fun, minus my best friend, the same amount of fun for like 40 bucks. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I could not, like, it just does not compute for me to do that. So it just felt really, it just felt like weird. It's like, this is stupid. And I had a lot of conversations, talking to my friend all the time. It's like, because you don't have income, he's telling me, because you don't have income, you feel powerless. You feel like you can't do this. So once you get a job, you'll be fine. Once you get a job, you'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So I'm trying to get these things, and I applied for so many jobs. And by the time I decided to finally just go back to Japan, because I remember somebody asked me, he's like, why did you leave? I was like, I don't know why I left. And then I started thinking about it, and I kept thinking about it. And you know what? I said, you know what? I had my own place. I had a good job. I had friends. I had access to places. I had Disney's right there. I had so many things. Like, I could do anything I wanted. I just had to be a little frugal with the balance of my money, which I still do now, which is good. Instead of having this really reckless lifestyle that I was having for the past 2 months, 3 months, I'll get my life back on track. And by the time I decided to go back, one of my friends reached out to me on Twitter, and he's like, "Hey, yo, got a job for you, blah blah blah." I was like, "Bet, we're gonna do it. I'm gonna take it." He's got a place for me. I was like, "Bet, I'm taking it because I'm not staying in this cooked ass place." So, as much as it was sad for me to leave my friends and family behind, well, it's actually better now because now I feel more connected with them, because, just, how it is. I'd rather do that than stay in Canada and try and make something. And the funny part was, I already locked in the job with this new company that I'm working with now. And then after that, right after that day, one company out of all the 60, 70, 100 companies I applied to finally responded to me and said, let's set up an interview at the end of the month. I'm like, I'm gone already, bro. Like, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. Like, you're too late. It's too late, buddy. It's too late. And it just felt like everything kind of just aligned for me. And it just felt like, you had to be back. And the kicker is, when I went to the airport and I was about to leave, and they give you the little special re-entry card in your passport, and they ask you if you're going to come back. I remember sitting there for a good 20 seconds, and I said, yes. And I checked yes on that box, and I said, yes, I ain't going to come back maybe within a year. As long as you come back within a year, visa's fine. I have a 5-year visa. It's good for 3 more years. I was like, you know what? Might as well keep it open. And I'm so glad I did, because now I feel like I'm back where I belong. And that's such a weird thing to say, because again, we go back to that conversation where it's like, a lot of people say foreigners don't feel like they have a home here. You'll never be you'll never be welcomed here, blah blah blah. And honestly, I swear to God, I have made a somewhat of a career or reputation of being someone who is super cynical about Japan, talking about social issues, getting canceled, all this and that, blah blah blah, saying stupid stuff, and being able to get that perspective of leaving Japan with the intention of leaving for good. And I say that with intention for leaving for good because it's different than going back for vacation, because there's no real safe haven for you to go back to. Everything feels temporary when you go back home for vacation. But when I went back with the intention to start a new life, I really, really appreciated a lot of the things, began to appreciate a lot of the things that I had back here. All the little things. Japan has a lot of, there's a lot of stupid stuff, I guess. Not stupid stuff. There's a lot of frustrating things about this country that piss off a lot of jaded gaikokujin, right? Jaded foreigners. Oh, you see it all the time on Twitter. And it's ironic because I used to be one of those people. And I don't want to say I take pride, but I'm glad that I don't, or I try not to have that mindset, which is why I don't even I don't try to engage in those kind of conversations anymore, because I've found this newfound appreciation for what Japan is. whether or not it is at the cost of an individual's, emotional freedom or zangyo, whatever. Japan is harmonious. It's like there's a lot of order. Like I'm a very chaotic person, so having a sense of order and control, if that makes any sense, makes me feel like I can be. The way I describe it is, Japan is kind of like you're the main character. You because you're a foreigner and you're outside the circle, and a lot of people don't interact with you on a daily basis. You feel like you're the main character of quote unquote of like a sandbox, right? Because you could literally spend entire days without talking to anybody, and you just follow your script every day, and you just say the same things every day, and you can do whatever you want after work. In Canada, everybody's a player. So like you never know what's gonna happen. You could talk to this, something else can have this, blah, 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 blah. You go to a convenience store here, just like you know exactly what kind of interaction it's gonna be, you know exactly what they're gonna say, you know exactly what movie they're gonna do. And because of collectivism and because of the way people are taught here, you can even predict reactions of people. You can predict what they're gonna say. If you say this, they'll go, hey. If you say this, they'll say jozu. Like you know what it's like. And I want to approach that topic without a cynical mindset. I feel like I appreciate it. And I appreciate that they respect you and they try to be polite to you and they try to help you. And I know there's a lot of people who would disagree with that, but I'm glad that I've gained that perspective of not being as a fly, not being as cynical as I used to be. And of course, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm a sage now. But I've definitely I've definitely changed my perspective of how I view Japan. And I would rather choose being here alone and building my career, continuing my career, than to feel like I'm stuck in Canada doing nothing. So that brings us to the last reason why I came back, and it's to finish what I started, maydaysan, right? There are times when I've meet you guys on the street and you take pictures, you keep making videos, bro. Some people I've met, they say, hey, you're the reason I'm here, or you got me through COVID, you did this and that. And every time I hear those words come from the fans in my face, and I always read the comments, right? But when I see it in person, it really humbles me and reminds me of, sometimes your content is beyond yourself, right? You have to serve your audience and you get lost in numbers. But when you actually see the humans you affect, you feel like, this is worth it. Oh, man, it sounds like you're just looking for validation. You should like what you like. Say whatever you want, okay? I personally appreciate when I make an impact on people, which is why I like teaching a lot. Not doing that anymore though, but that's why I appreciated teaching a lot. But yeah, that's 3 reasons. 1, I felt like I didn't belong. 2, Canada's cooked. And 3, I want to finish what I started. So that's that. Guys, what an off the cuff video. Time to plug the rest of my channel. So I went back here because I needed to continue my airsoft channel, which is actually my most profitable channel. If you didn't know, my airsoft channel, like I can't even see the thing. It's like 145,000 subscribers. It's great. It does amazing. And I couldn't play airsoft in Canada, but I'll be making a video for the airsoft channel on there another day, not today. And then I started doing a travel account called maydaysan Explores. And that's kind of like the travel cash cow, generic, whatever. I'm not sure what I want to do with it yet, what direction I want to go with it yet, but that channel's for that. And then maydaysan has been, for the past few days and weeks now, back to skits and back to comedy and satire and all that kind of stuff. So I really feel like I'm going back to roots and starting over on the right side of the leaf this time. And I want to do it right. I don't want to be, what's the word? I don't want to be like a cynical asshole this time. I feel a lot more calmer coming back this time, being 30 and just kind of matured a little bit. I don't want to be a dick anymore. Time to start anew. Guys, thank you so much for listening. And I'm hoping to make more of these casual videos moving forward. I don't know what I really want to do. I know the short form is going to be skits for sure, but long form stuff, maybe we'll just do what Anime Man does, just sit at a computer and just talk about issues and whatever, and just kind of give my opinions on it. Maybe get some guests on the show. I don't know. Start a podcast. Gary Vee said to start a podcast. That's really why I made this video. But Gary Vee said to start a podcast in 2023. He's like, if you're not starting your podcast in 2023, then you're missing out. You're missing out right now. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just start one. But anyway, it's time to go to the gym. Guys, thanks so much for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. And hello, my name is Haru. Peace.